Did you like Gaga's Oscars 2023 performance? What about her latest music or her acting career? What if I told you it's all because of Artpop, or better, its flop? Album wasn't bad at all, but the world expected more from the Fame and Born This Way mastermind. Despite Gaga tweeting she didn't remember Artpop in 2019. In this video essay, I argue that Artpop was the main force that led not only to Gaga's phenomenal performance 10 years later at Oscars, but her role at Star is Born and successful acting career in general. Let me elaborate. Promotion of Artpop set crazy expectations. Instead of putting pop onto the canvas, we wanted to put the art onto the soup can, Gaga told O2 in a promotional interview ahead of the album's release. This meant mixing her pop aesthetics with fine art, past and present. She collaborated with pop artist Jeff Koons, who turned her into one of his gazing ball sculptures for the album cover. Then, its photograph was spliced with pieces of Botticelli's Renaissance painting, The Birth of Venus. Visuals look stunning, so was the concept. But then there was a sound. Rolling Stone called the album a bizarre album of squelchy disco that aspires to link gallery culture and radio heaven, preferring concepts to choruses. The magazine went on saying, Gaga wants us to believe the LP was inspired by Marina Abramovi, Jeff Koons and Sandro Botticelli. At its best, it sounds like it was creatively directed by RuPaul, Dr. Ruth, and Beavis and Butthead. Ouch. There are still some sparks of eccentricity, the New York Times sniffed, but for much of the album, Artpop seems to be working off a checklist that Lady Gaga chants in Aura, tech dance sex art pop. But critics always have something bad to say. And what matters is the public opinion, right? At least that's what Gaga says in the beginning lines of Applause, the lead track on Artpop. The problem with the album was that it didn't excite the broad audience either. In 2013, the competition was tough. It was the year when Miley shocked the industry with bangers and Katy Perry was on top of the game with Prism. As Pitchfork wrote, the songs on Artpop are hooky and encompassing, but not with the easy cheese of Katy Perry's Roar or Miley Cyrus' We Can't Stop. Despite Little Monster's devotion and tweeting by Artpop on iTunes, the artist managed to sell roughly 260,000 copies in the first week. That would be a more than 75% drop-off from her prior album, which bowed with 1.1 million units moved. The 2011's release wasn't only commercially astronomical but critically acclaimed as well. Born This Way was described by Rolling Stone upon its release as the disarmingly great. Obviously, Artpop was always going to have a high bar to clear. But if you look closer, flopped Artpop is not very different from triumphal Born This Way. For example, both records include many of the song archetypes that listeners had come to expect from a Gaga record. The piano ballad, embodied by Yo and I on Born This Way, manifested as Dope, one of the very greatest Gaga vocal performances on Artpop. Her fashion bangers nodded on Born This Way by Black Jesus. Amen fashion came into their own, via Donatella and fashion. The main reason for Artpop's underperformance was the surprise factor, or the lack of it. For a while, Gaga's out-of-this-world theatrics were incredibly effective. Prior to Artpop, Gaga released music that skittered across pop genres. In the process, she turned every public appearance into an opportunity to shock her audience with increasingly outlandish outfits. Her aesthetic restlessness filled everything she did, until her unpredictability reached its inevitable conclusion. It became predictable. In my opinion, Artpop was playing with the public limits. Gaga used the surprise factor from the very beginning of her fame. She managed to shock the audience again and again through previous two albums. With Artpop, the star wanted to determine how much experimental art people could tolerate from a pop star. So I consider Artpop the end of shocking, surprising era. Gaga deliberately forced herself to begin anew, bringing forward stripped-down vulnerability and authenticity, one that led her to make Joanne, an album that mostly consists of soft rock, and take on the main role in A Star Is Born, a movie that required her to abandon her maximalist stage persona and become a shy, humble waitress who's all but given up on the idea of achieving fame and glory. For decades, Oscars set expectations for fairy tale-like evenings. Everything about Oscars seems oddly divine and inhuman, starting from fashion on the red or champagne carpet and ending with scripted performances. Gaga, blend in the glamored-up crowd as she walked the carpet in Versace and diamonds, wearing heavy makeup. Not for long, however. She quietly appeared on stage to perform sans makeup, wearing a black t-shirt, ripped black jeans, and Converse. This is Gaga's most important performance in a decade, because here she finally emphasized emotion over glam. To appear almost nakedly herself on a night where the estimated expenditure for a look is anywhere from $1.5 to $10 million is quite simply an exhibition of feminine vulnerability and strength. She is here, without trying to shock, looking casual and singing about tough times we all can relate to. In an interview with Vogue, Lady Gaga said, "I like that fashion can both be a form of expression and a form of hiding." After reaching peak and hiding behind the flashy stage persona with Artpop, Gaga got rid of the weary mask and built her new personality around authenticity and relatability. Her plain look wasn't the only statement the performance made. Prior to Sunday, it had been widely reported that Lady Gaga wouldn't perform at the Oscars. Thursday, at 4-something, we got a text that she wanted to try something, didn't have time to put together a big performance, but wanted it to be raw and people to see the real Gaga, said executive producer Ricky Kirshner. That step seems to define the modern female as she should be, knowing her boundaries, needing her space, and making the decision to show up selectively and on her terms. Same goes with the lyrics, reiterating the inherent vulnerability of being human. They reassure us that being an individual doesn't need to mean being isolated. And they remind us that wanting someone to stand alongside you while you face your demons is not a weakness.